So today's goal is, what am I supposed to do with this?
Get rid of it.
What? I guess today's goal is to get rid of this. All right, so I'm obviously not going to throw this away because I throw nothing away. So I'm going to make something out of it instead. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into a perfect rectangle. I'm going to frame it kind of like a shaker style door and use some clothespins, hang some pictures off of it, and have it take up some wall space in the house somewhere. I think she'll be happy with that. Yeah. I'm working with a plastic lattice here, so you can't just sand away pencil lines like you can on a normal wooding project. So what I'm going to do for my cut lines is I'm going to mark them with painter's tape and then just cut right along the painter's tape. So what I'm using here is my regular Barbie Playhouse table saw with a regular wooden blade to cut the plastic. It'll be fine. The wood I'm working with here today is sapele. I'm going to rip this down into 3-inch wide strips, and that's what I'm going to make my border with. The correct way to do this would be to run it across a jointer to make sure you have one perfectly flat side. Then run the other side through the planer that you see here. But this board was pretty flat to begin with, so I'm just going to trust the board and use my planer. So now I'm going to cut my miter corners. Now the way I do this is I'll cut my length perfectly straight and then I'll sneak up on my miter cut at that length. I do this because for some reason whenever I go to just cut my miters directly into the piece, I end up screwing up my length all the time. So I found this to be a strategy that helps me to get the right length every time I cut it. It does add an extra step to my process, but to me it's worth it if it stops me from cutting a piece shorter than what I need. If I need to trim an extra hair off of a piece, what I do is I slide that piece right up firmly against the blade, drag it back up, turn the saw on, and then bring it back down, and it cuts that hair off the piece that I need. Now this is where I'm going to cut the groove that the lattice is going to slide into. That lattice is about a 1/4 inch thick and the blade is about an 1/8 inch thick. So what I'll have to do is slide my fence over a little bit to get that extra 1/8 of an inch to make a full 1/4 inch for it to slide into with ease. Before I go gluing this together, it's really important that I get the inside edges sanded, because once it's all together, it's going to be really hard to get to those inside edges. This will make my life a lot easier. Just in case you wanted to watch me suffer through the part that I do not like about woodworking, here's a little clip of me sanding. Alright, so now it's time for me to glue this thing together. Now, I do not use any of them fancy corner clamps to clamp these things together because I found that none of them actually get the corners in nice and tight together, and I end up with screwed up looking miters. So I'm just going to use the plain old painter's tape and use that to hold it together. And what I'm putting underneath it is some parchment paper, and what that does is keeps it from gluing my piece to my workbench. Parchment paper comes off with ease. For extra strength, I like to use splines, and here you can see me using my spline jig on my table saw to cut the groove out for them. The spline just gives extra surface for the glue to hold on to keep everything together. If you have really good miter joints, they might stay together perfectly fine on their own, but I like to throw these in for extra reinforcement. This is my favorite way to reinforce my miters, simply because I just like the way they look in the end. Alright, here's some more sanding for you freaks that like to watch me sand. I better not see this on one of them fetish sites. Whenever I switch over to my 240 grit sandpaper, I like to take a pencil around there and draw some squiggly lines around to sand off. It's what I call my keep 'em honest lines. It forces me to sand it off instead of getting lazy whenever I'm sanding. You know, my favorite thing to do. Alright. So now it's time for my favorite part, which is the finish. What I'm using here is some Danish oil. It's brush on and then let it sit for 10-15 minutes and then wipe it off. Then what I do is I hit it with a polishing pad and then I go through and do it again. It's a real easy finish, real simple finish, and I love using it. Danish oil, the thing to go with. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use keyhole slots to hold this thing on the wall. Next week I think I'm going to post a video on how to make that jig. So tune in next week to see how to make it. Alright, so here's the finished piece hanging up on the wall. I'm really excited with how it turned out. The missus seems to really love it too. She seemed to be thrilled that I didn't throw that piece away, so that's a good thing. So do me a favor, hit that like button, and if you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button with the notification bell. I'm going to try to post every week here. Till next time, see ya.